sticking with the theme of me starting the show with something personal that I'm going through, I've been thinking a lot this past week about my father. But I realized over, a lot of the traumas that I've endured in my life that in some ways I can trace back the origins of my comfortability with the toxicity that led to them to my relationship with my father. So my father is still alive. We do not speak. We haven't spoken in many, 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 many years. And I've had different conversations with therapists, with friends that are close to me, with people I've been in relationships with about how I should repair that relationship. If you have a bad relationship with a parent, I think each individual has a different perspective on what they want from that relationship or how they want to have conversations. Or I have a very close friend that didn't have a relationship with his father growing up. He now has repaired that relationship and they have a good relationship, working on better. And, talking to him, I was really happy for him that he was able to do that. And I don't want to necessarily say proud because I don't know the intricacies of what their relationship was. But for me personally, I do wonder how different of a person I would be if I had a relationship with a father. So not necessarily if I had a relationship with my father, but if I had a real, true father in my life. One of my best friend's fathers, I kind of adopted, in my late teens, early 20s, but we aren't as close enough as I would need to be with a father that I could rely on in that way. And in a lot of ways, not having a man in my life that I can call on in the way that you would call on a father has isolated me from men, has caused me to have a deep distrust for people. It's definitely formed some type of hyper independence. And all of these things I'm definitely working on and I recognize in myself. But I think when we talk about, daddy issues, you always default to your relationships with men and your relationship with sex and not being able to, form real bonds or have respect for men. And while some of those things are true, I think those can in some ways be the easily fixed issues when it comes to having daddy issues. I don't know if I'll ever be a real whole person because I don't have that safety net with a man in my life. And I don't think a brother can fix that. I'm very close with my brothers. I have an amazing relationship with my mom. She's a wonderful person and gives me a sense of home that no one else can. But the void of growing up in an unsafe environment, not knowing what the day is going to be one day to the next, almost sensing peace and quiet and any kind of tenderness from your father as manipulation because you know that it can be turned on its head at a second notice to complete terror. I don't know how to properly contextualize how surviving in an environment like that could ever just switch off as an adult. And believe me, I've done extensive work to try and repair what was broken in me from a very young age. My first memory in life, my oldest memory from the time that I was the youngest, was my mother running away from my father as he chased her around the kitchen table, and I'm hiding my younger brother and sister in my arms, and she's screaming at him not to hit her in front of us. That's my first memory in life. And so much of trauma is in your DNA. Obviously, it's passed from generations, and we know that that's a real thing. But it's also in how you're formed and what makes you feel safe, what feels familiar to you. And getting and breaking the chains of chaos that kind of childhood put in me was very hard to do, and I'm still working on it. But I also want to recognize all the things that I'm missing so that I'm not so hard on myself when I try to fix those things. So that's part one of the daddy issues rant. There'll be plenty more, but that's what I wanted to talk about today.
Wow. I really appreciate her being honest and open about speaking about her father. so much to say in this little video. Um, it sounded like her father was very abusive to her mother. And if she grew up in a very abusive home, watching your father, she just gave an example of her father chasing around her mother and her mother screaming, "Please don't hit me, please don't hit me." To see that as a young kid and you being brought up and raised in a household where your dad is being abusive to your mother, it sticks with you. And it will have to take a very, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but that sticks with you. And sometimes you internalize that as how a relationship is supposed to be, and then you grow up to become an adult, and then you kind of mimic what you saw as a child. Man, but that's tough. But I appreciate her being honest and open about this. And also, what also is good is she states that she has been talking to a therapist. But I think the most important thing for her that she hasn't done is reach out to and speak to her father. I think the breakthrough is having a conversation with your father and finding like a sense of peace within that. I think she should reach out and start talking to her father, because I think it's going to help her internally. It's going to help her find probably whatever that she's searching for. Because of growing up in an abusive household, I truly believe has affected her relationships with men. And I think the first step of getting over that is having that conversation with your father, letting him know that because you did this and that while I was growing up, it has affected me in my relationship with men and so forth. And just to have that conversation back and forth, because mentally those images are in her head. And that's probably why she's not married right now. That's probably why she has the views that she believes in right now. All her views and what she believes in and why she's not married right now, I believe, is because of her father. Not having a relationship with her father, growing up in an abusive household. And I think the best thing that she can do is reach out and have a conversation with him. I'm not saying to have a relationship with him, but reach out and have a conversation with him, because I think it really and truly will help her in her life. It'll probably help give her insight in what she does in her relationship with men, or just insight in life, period. But man, it's tough. So just to hear that, man, for me, I'm happy I didn't have to grow up in a situation like that. So I can only imagine growing up in an abusive household. You become an adult, and a lot of times kids mimic what they see, and then you become an adult and you're doing the same exact thing that you've seen as a kid, which is not good in itself, especially if you grew up in an abusive household. So appreciate her opening up and talking about this. I think it's not only going to help her, but it's going to help other folks that are going through this or went through this growing up. By her just opening up and talking about it, it's going to be, I appreciate her doing that. But her breakthrough is going to come whenever she decides to speak to her father. I think she truly needs to do that. Reach out. I know it's probably one of the hard. Some of the times, the hardest thing to do in your life is where your breakthrough lies. So I truly feel if she reach out and talk to her father face to face, not on the phone, face to face, she can find the answers that she needs, and that can help her from in her life from this day forward. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. I'll see you in the next video. Yay, yay.